Hey everyone, welcome to the Healthy Teams podcast. I'm your host, Mark Erickson, and this is the show where we dive into the real stories behind thriving workplace cultures, exploring everything from wellness and morale to leadership and productivity. Today's guest is Robert White, founder and CEO of Extraordinary People, LLC. And Robert is no stranger to transformation. He's led three training industry success stories and LifeSpring, ARC International, and now Extraordinary People with over 1.3 million graduates. I got to say, Robert, that kind of blew me away. That's incredible. But 1.3 million graduates from their high impact experiential trainings. And Robert is a seasoned executive coach, dynamic speaker, and he's the author of Living the Extraordinary Life, a book that's inspired leaders about what's possible. And Robert, we're thrilled to have you today and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. It's a great opportunity because I know your focus is on Colorado companies, and though most of my work is outside of Colorado, maybe that king is with that honor in his own country, kind of thing is happening, even though I do have a few Colorado clients. But most of my work's outside Colorado, but I love the state. It's an adopted home for me. And what you're doing, I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Robert, can we start things off? Could you tell us just a little bit more about the kind of work that you do at Extraordinary People?
Mark, I'm old enough so that story could be a day or two long, and so I want to be careful about it. Look, I grew up in poverty and abuse. A story that I've learned is not uncommon. It's way too common for some young people. And I made a decision very early on that in some ways led to the work that I do today, which is I decided that an essential purpose of my life was never be poor again. Now that purpose has changed over the year and I think refined a bit. Also, it's a negative purpose, ultimately. But what it led me to was being 27 years old, broke, divorced, and felt horribly guilty about that early divorce, and also with a fairly severe health problem. And a friend of mine enrolled me into one of the early human potential movement trainings called Mind Dynamics. And as a student, I went there, arms crossed, legs crossed, probably eyes crossed, just negative and cynical. And I'm here because I have to be here because my friend kind of forced me to be here. And 4 days later, my life started changing radically, dramatically, and for the better. The health problem went away. There's not a word said in the Mind Dynamics course about money or business. And yet I tripled my little business in the year following that training. And the second year, it went up 10 times. I started making more money in a month than I'd ever made in a year. And in addition to that, and more importantly, my relationships grew and blossomed, and just wonderful things happened for me in every area of my life. And I started sending a lot of people to the Mind Dynamics training. That led to them finding out about me. I mean, I didn't do it for money. I did it because it helped me and helped my family and helped my friends. But I was very excited about it. I didn't understand it, but I got the value and I wanted other people to share that. And that actually led to me becoming president of Mind Dynamics. I took a 70% pay cut, sold my business, moved to California, and for 4 years ran the business side of Mind Dynamics. I did go through the trainer training after a couple of years, which served me well, and even today serves me. Terrific experience. I got to travel around the world, set up 7 foreign subsidiaries. For a kid that grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, on the wrong side of the tracks, it was just an absolutely amazing experience. I learned so much. from the founder of Mind Dynamics, but I had free reign to run the business. And it was just an amazing part of my life. The ownership of Mind Dynamics changed. It became untenable for me. It didn't work anymore for me. So I quit. I had formed this company you mentioned called LifeSpring. And after 6 months, I sold the company I founded. I no longer wanted to work in my own company, which taught me a lot of lessons that I share today with our clients. And that led to the one country that I said no to during the 4 years of Mind Dynamics CEO job. I said no to Japan. It was the language was the opposite of Roman languages. It was incredibly crowded, which meant very high real estate rental charges. And we, of course, used training rooms. And it was the most foreign place I'd ever visited. After spending a week there, I said no. And also, we were very busy. So, and for the next 2 years, they contacted me at least once a month, a letter, a fax, a phone call. Please come to Japan. We really want to do your training here. And I had a variety of reasons for saying no. I think most of them fairly valid. And then I decided to sell LifeSpring to my staff. And I had put every penny that I had into that business. And it was totally self-funded. And I sold it for nothing down and forever to pay to the staff. And the old joke, they took longer than forever to pay. But eventually they did pay me.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
But by that time I had remarried. I had a son. I had a mortgage. I had all this stuff, and I have no money. And I'm kind of unemployable in a way. And they called me with a new offer. They said, come for 90 days to Tokyo and set up a program, and then you can leave and we'll pay you for 1 year. Sounded pretty good to me at the time. Much later, and we do a lot of work on purpose and vision, people will say, well, were you so clear on your purpose and vision? And that's why you went to Asia. And it was so painful to have to answer honestly and say, no, I just needed a job. I needed to take care of my family. And but I think at a deeper level, it was an expression of purpose and vision that hadn't revealed itself to me yet. And so that led to originally 13 years in Japan, a company that became the second largest training company in the world and the biggest training company in Asia by far, with 7 training centers in Japan, 2 in Taiwan, 1 in Manila, 1 in Seoul, 1 in Sydney, Australia, 1 in Hong Kong, and an illegal one in China at that time. That happened without my knowledge, by the way. My own staff broke the law on my behalf. That I've now lived abroad for 23 years of my working life. It's been a big part of my life. In 1986, I semi-retired. I had purchased a sales training product, a franchise for Japan from a Denver-based company called American Sales Masters. So part of our business was sales training. And a couple of times a year, I was here in Colorado, and I just fell in love with the state. So when I semi-retired, I could have chosen literally to live anywhere. And I chose originally Castle Pines here south of Denver, and then Aspen, Colorado. So I've been in and out of Colorado since then, and this is home for me. And over 1 million graduates, I think we've contributed. Also, we've learned a lot from them, from the participants. So today I work with teams, executive teams. It's the highest leverage way to use what I know, is to contribute to owners and executives of teams that want an extraordinary result, that want that transformational experience, that they get an entirely new perspective, entirely new way of operating, and an effectiveness level that is mind blowing. So that's what I'm up to now.
Wow, what a truly extraordinary journey your life has had. Um, could you share, Robert, how your personal definition of the extraordinary life has evolved over the years?
I have a dear friend, a former client, and has become a very close friend. And he's incredibly successful, and he is a learner, like lifelong learner. And one of the things he does is, and actually, I'm wearing a shirt today that's a product of a different friend. I accumulate these friends that love corporate wear, and they always send me examples, right? So this one is a different friend, but it says "You matter." Uh, I
Love it.
think that's a pretty good message.
Yes, I agree.
And there's a great story behind that. But the other friend sent me a sweatshirt that says, "Fire your brain, hire your heart." So, an emphasis for our work is that you can make all the money in the world, and if you don't have a well rounded life, then you're not going to experience what's possible for a human being. And you're not going to be an example for your team, for your family, for the community. And that opportunity is what we attempt to reveal. And that is that living an extraordinary life, the title of the book, is really about making that kind of transformational shift so that all of your life is about accomplishment and joy and fulfillment. Um, I've shared this story in public, and when I originally did it, I was a little uncomfortable. I think particularly for men, we don't like to talk about our weak areas or our failures, our concerns, our doubts, our fears. I was living in Aspen in a 14,500 square foot home that we built on 76 acres. I had my own jet. I had 7 personal staff, and just a fantastic life. Spent a month on safari in Africa, traveled with the late John Denver for 6 months presenting a program on environmental sustainability. Uh, I rafted the Amazon, traveled all over the world, just an incredible life. But what I noticed as I started waking up in that beautiful home most mornings, laying in bed thinking, uh, there's something missing. That God has something in mind for me that is ahead of me. It's not behind me. And actually, when traveling with John Denver, we would present one of these. It was called Higher Ground, a seminar on environmental sustainability based on the work of the late Buckminster Fuller. And but then the next night, John would do a concert. I'd sit in the audience, or I'd sit backstage, but John, his schedule was to do the concert, and so at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, he's wide awake. I'm thinking about bed. He's wide awake. So we had a lot of late night conversations, and I think his main goal was to keep me awake. And in one of them, he just went silent at some point. He just stared at me. And I finally I said, I was uncomfortable. I said, "What's going on?" He said, "You think you're hot stuff, but God has something more in mind for you." It was exactly what I was feeling in the mornings, from a dear friend and someone who I loved and respected. And so what that led to was a lot of personal work on me, uh, going out and doing a bunch of different seminars, seeing a therapist, doing some kind of oddball things, and that some of my former employees suggested, and kind of a breakthrough. And it led to the subtitle of my book, which is about also finding joy and fulfillment from our work. So I believe that results are everything for business owners, executives, and parents. We're looking for creating results. And that still needs to be number one, or the organization, the family suffers. But I believe strongly, based on my personal experience and that of literally over 1 million people, that you can add joy and fulfillment to that at any point in your life. In my case, it was, right around 50 years old. And so my training changed. Uh, I had a coach who recommended I fire some friends, and I did that. It's not a comfortable exercise, but I started surrounding myself with people that were more rounded, that were fully integrating their family, their faith, and their work into one whole person. And that's what we work with owners and executives, and more importantly, with their teams.
Fantastic. I love that. And so it sounds like part of this is helping people kind of find their calling, their higher purpose. Is that kind of what you're talking about when you're talking about living the extraordinary life?
When I look at how we structure our work, Mark, this comes from, one of the people in my life said, "What's special about you, Robert, is you've been there and done that." I've had incredible success. I've also had very public, huge failures. I lost $30 million of my own money in closing ARC International, and so I've just had all of those experiences. So what I've learned personally about running an organization, so if we start there, is there are three things that any executive needs to pay attention to. One is focus. Do you and everybody on particularly in your top team, and penetrating as much as possible into the whole organization, need to have focus. Everybody needs to know what we're up to here, personally and as a group, in the next 90 days. Not a 10-year plan, not a 5-year plan, not even a 1-year plan. What are we up to in the next 90 days? And I've experimented with different time periods, and that's the one that's long enough to get some things done, but short enough so you can really capture people's attention. So organizations need focus, and it widely shared and really committed to. The second piece is alignment. I'm not the first person to mention that, and that alignment is around purpose, vision, values, and the strategic intent, that 90-day plan. But what I've learned is that your reason for existing as an individual and as an organization, that purpose, your unique reason for existing, is so important as a foundational knowledge for you, where you come from, where you stand. And one of our graduates, a guy named Arjun Sen, he's the former senior vice president of Papa John's, ran marketing for them. This is a very able guy, and he's gone on to be just an incredible advisor to some very famous people. He's also a crisis manager, which is an interesting job, right? Where you come in because an executive's in trouble. It's fascinating. And Arjun says, "We are one of one." Very simple words, kind of like bumper sticker wisdom, right? Which is something we should always kind of be nervous about. Things are usually not that simple. But we're approaching 8 billion people on the planet, and yet there, as far as anybody can figure out, there's 8 billion different fingerprints, 8 billion different DNAs. We're all different. We are all unique. And whether you're faith-based and you say, well, God put me here for the unique reason, or you attribute it to the stars or the moon or whatever you attribute it to, we have a unique contribution. And that shows up in our statement of purpose. The second piece is to have a vision. And the way we define that is it's something you want to contribute to that will take longer than your lifetime, that you probably won't do it. My friend John Denver signed a zillion autographs with peace. John Denver. Well, last time I checked, we had something like 14 shooting wars going on in the world right now. We're a long way from peace. And I don't know I don't believe that in my lifetime we're going to have peace. I'm not just talking globally. I'm talking about in our families, in our companies, in our communities. So, but alignment around a vision that is compelling, that draws to you the resources, the people, the opportunities that you need for success. And some people call it luck, and I'm okay with calling it luck. But that vision better be big enough to hold all of that and be something that people want to participate in, whether it's an employee or it's your banker or it's your family, that people will support you if you have a compelling vision, something really, really big. For my companies, and it's also a book that I published, One World, One People. That's my vision. That's not going to happen in my lifetime, but it inspires me, and it has inspired a lot of other people, really fantastic people, to jump on board with me. Again, in my company, in my family, in my community. And then values. You know, the the great teachers throughout mankind's history have taught that values are the basis of everything. And so we work with clients to identify 5 to 7 lived values that they take a stand for in their company, in their life. I've facilitated a program in the last few years called Living a Better Story. And it's aimed at Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, all hugely successful people that don't go to church, don't go to temple, don't go to synagogue, yet they live their lives in a faith-based way. Their personal life, their business life, that all matters to them. They're clear about their values. And in that case, faith-based. But even without faith, what is it that you stand for? What do you really value? What will you give up your life for? Almost. And then finally, strategic intent. To be successful, you better have a strategy. It's a tough market out there. And that intention part. What are you going to produce in the next 90 days? What is every individual in your life going to produce, from your teenage son to your next door neighbor to certainly your vice president or your middle managers? What are people committed to? What would they promise and deliver? So that's kind of a structure of what we do. We try to do it with experiences instead of just didactic, academic kind of an approach. I think we've got pretty solid thinking behind our work, but how it shows up, we make sure that you get engaged, you have some fun, and that you build community within your company, within your community, and in the world.
Robert, can you share maybe a breakthrough moment that's come through your life experiences that's just really stuck with you over the years? Maybe it's been transformational for you personally.
My book, when it came out, I was so nervous. I had been told for 20 years to write this book, and I had a zillion really well-crafted excuses for not doing it. And the breakthrough was really Stephen Covey selling 25 million copies of the 7 Habits book, which is about 1/3 our material, 1/3 really the Mormon Church thinly described, and 1/3 his original research. And so I read the book and I go, well, he stole that from me. He stole that from me. He stole that from me. And it embarrassed me into stop lying to myself and others about how you can't fit a book about experiential learning. You can't even create an experience with a book, which I found out is not true. But I lived that for 20 years. And when I published the book, I sent copies to people that I respected. People like Jimmy Colano, the founder of Career Track up in Boulder, like Ken Blanchard, the 1 Minute Manager guy, and situational leadership guy, more correctly. People like that. Dr. Bob Wright, incredible coach and trainer. And the commonality of their response was, I love your books. Send me 20 copies for my family and friends, things like that. I mean, really positive. And then people would say, but I'm disappointed in one thing. And Mark, that one thing was, they'd say some version of, the book is not about you. I thought living an extraordinary life would be about your life, which is a nice compliment. And by the way, I've made so many mistakes that, they're not in my bio, right? They're not in the videos. But I admit today, I have had an extraordinary life. It's been interesting, fascinating to me and to some other people. But the book is not about me. It's about our graduates and their interaction with the primary material in our trainings. And that's why it's become a bestseller. That's very clear to me. People they identify with those examples in the book and the journey that people are on of kind of doing okay in life, coming to our seminar, and then having extraordinary results and their personal journey. That's what's in the book. And what I didn't reveal for a long time was there is one chapter about me. It just doesn't say it's about me. And that chapter is in the section on beliefs, the underlying programming that all of us have, primarily gained before we're 8 years old. That's what the research shows. And it's how we decide about our attitudes about money, about other people, about marriage, about family, about peace, about war, about shopping, just everything is all this programming called our belief system. And that, like many chapter in that book, is titled The Most Limiting Belief of All. You are not enough. You're not enough. And I realized in kind of in the process of life and feedback from friends and coaches and trainers is that was the underlying belief that ran my life, that I was not enough, that I didn't have the right background. I washed out of college after one semester due to a heart attack, and I had two more heart attacks by the time I was 23. So
My gosh.
I'm defective, you know, and I grew up with an extremely angry and critical mother, the primary person in my life, who told me I would never amount to anything, that my dreams were too big, that I was too full of myself. I can remember word for word the things she said to me. And so I lived as not enough. So one of the things we teach in the training, Mark, that I find resonates with many people like me, people that run companies, is that we have some strong belief and we're motivated to do something that probably is a little outside the norm, or as my former wife once said, Robert did not get a job at J.C. Penney. That has not been my life pattern, the 9 to 5 or whatever work day. And what we secretly feel is we're not enough. And it handicaps us in every way. Sometimes it means we become more critical of others when it's really ourselves that we're critiquing. I mean, psychologists have a field day with "you are not enough," or they've now named it imposter syndrome. This is just luck. I'm really not as smart as they think I am. All of that stuff. And the journey for me and that turning point for me was realizing I'm enough. Am I perfect? No, I got a zillion flaws. I'm undisciplined sometimes. I struggle with my weight. Uh, I don't keep agreements sometimes, and we teach keeping agreements as central to trust. I know me. And I went from judging myself about that and feeding that, that what we do with our belief is we go looking for evidence that we're right about it. It's a pretty strong human need, is to be right about
Yeah.
that, about everything, but certainly about our beliefs. And we go looking for evidence that we're right about our own self-limiting beliefs. And I did that for too many years. I mean, I was making a lot of money and a lot of fame, and yet secretly I was not enough. And the last 10 years of my life have been marked by the realization is I'm enough. Not perfect, but I'm enough. God put me here for some reason. My job is to figure out what that is and act on it. So, and that's what I recommend to others.
That's fantastic. I mean, as team leaders, we're always going to be, working with our team members, and many of them are, probably all of them, are going to have those same types of limiting beliefs. And Robert, what would you suggest to team leaders to to help to help them achieve everything they can achieve in spite of these limiting beliefs that have been programmed into them since childhood? I mean, is that even possible for a manager to do, or do they really have to go into something deeper, like a professional training course or something like that? What can we do to help people?
First of all, is that if I have a series of really bad headaches and that are not explained by the environment, something's really wrong. I can go have coffee with somebody and they can have an opinion about it. Or I could go see a neurologist and get an MRI, you know. So I think that a habit of reading positive books, of watching videos, of those, having a coach, all of those things are valuable and they contribute in small ways. However, the way the human condition is wired is to resist change because our old way of being is safer. And certainly staying safe is like a primary motivating force. So if I come to you and I say, I can show you how to have a different perspective on life, have more fun, and make more money, even though it all sounds good. And, if I'm Tony Robbins with that presence and all that power and all that energy, for about 24 hours, you're going to be excited about it. But you're going to tend to be pulled back into your old way of being and the old way of doing things. Uh, our experience is that what you need is a breakthrough experience. And to do that, you need the equivalent of a brain surgeon. You need a transformational coach or trainer and an experience with others that hold you to account for some kind of a new realization about how to live your life and how to run your business. And so that's the work I'm privileged to do and have done, for a lot of years. And there are other people that do what I do, by the way, particularly my former employees that now compete with me. Uh, but I think you look for the unusual because you're asking for something. Your request just now, Mark, you're asking for something that's almost impossible because the human condition is set up to resist change.
Well, certainly that is fascinating, and so it really isn't something that you can just model and say, I'm a positive person, I've achieved this and that. You can too. If we want our team members to live up to their potential, they do need the kind of the doctor, if you will, to go in there and help them
I've
with the
spent my life doing
transformation.
experiential learning. And it's difficult to describe because the moment you're describing it, it's not an experience, right? And so I look for examples. And one that has served me well, I think, because it happened in my life several times. And it's that moment when you have a child, that moment that you hold that little boy or little girl in your arms the first time. I can't tell you the number of people that have shared with me that their entire life changed in that moment. Now, sometimes you don't hold on to it and start getting caught up in the grind of life and forget that moment. But in that moment, you have a different perspective. Your life matters in a different way, and and you start thinking about the future in a different way in terms of your responsibility for this little human being. That's an experience. Now, understanding it, having it really capture your life, having you live into it, that's still challenging. And quite often we don't have a coach or a training program or a set of beliefs, a new set of beliefs that would keep that and have it actualized. But or riding a bike for the first time. There's a whole lot of experiences in life where it's a moment that's just filled with joy and accomplishment and wow, I didn't think I could do that. And what we try to do and successfully do in most cases is to recreate that in our team trainings so that, and we can share our expertise for 6 months or a year and then we're gone. But their lives have changed forever. So that's what I'm up to. And appreciate. Hey, thank you for taking the time and asking good questions. So I get to brag a little about our work.
Oh, this has been just absolutely fantastic. I apologize. I realize we're running long. I could talk with you for an hour. I mean, this is just absolutely great stuff. And what an incredible conversation we've had. And thank you so much, Robert, for joining us and sharing your insights about life, about building healthy teams. Before we wrap up, could you please let our listeners know where they can find you and how they can learn more about extraordinary people?
Yes, the best way is through my website, extraordinarypeople.com. Extraordinarypeople.com. And on the website, you have an opportunity to sign up for my weekly e-zine. I've been doing it for 17 years. It's called An Extraordinary Minute. So it's ideas that kind of have captured my attention, and but can be read in 1 minute or less once a week. And anytime you hit reply to that email, it comes directly to me, and I answer most of them, almost all. And at the same time, you'll get a 28-page monograph that I've revised. I probably 30 times, I don't know, a lot of times over the years. And it's my approach to success, what I've learned about success individually, but also with organizations. And there's a little self-graded test in there where you can privately take a look at where you are on what I call the 8 principles or 8 elements. And that's included, it's shareable. A lot of people have used it like a book study or as a brown bag lunch subject and they share it with friends and colleagues and people like that. So, and it puts us into a relationship. Of course, there's a book opportunity to buy my book. My daughter, who she never has told a joke and she makes me laugh all the time, but she said, "Dad, you're just another book salesman." But I'm proud of the book and people have gotten a lot of value. It's become a bestseller in 3 languages, and the 4th one, Spanish, will be later this year. So, or you can get it on Amazon and Kindle and all that kind of stuff. Living an Extraordinary Life. But reach out, ready to have a conversation whenever someone's ready.
Robert, thank you so much for your time. And I'll tell you what, first thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to sign up for your email list and I'm going to buy your book. So thank you so much for your time today, Robert. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Healthy Team Podcast. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe and share it with your team and really with anyone who's passionate about having a great workplace culture. We'll be back soon with more conversations to help you build stronger, healthier teams. And until next time, stay well and lead well. Thank you. Here we go.